All right, I'll go ahead and kick us off here. So welcome everyone to our Q&A with Qlik webinar series. We're so excited to have you all here today with us. Some of you may have been familiar with our monthly support webinar that was called Talk to Experts Tuesdays. This is the same thing, we just named it differently, so you know what the format is. We like to consider it a live office hours where you can come ask our experts questions on the given topic. We want to give you an hour with a few of our experts. You can ask any of your questions and you can use this time to get to know us a little bit better, put a face to the product, a face to community. On that note, I am Katie Davis. I will be your moderator for this session. I'm a senior community program manager on our customer success experience programs team, which is a mouthful. But that means we're here to make sure the Qlik users have the best possible digital experience and resources to be successful with our tools. I'm located outside of Philadelphia. It's on the East Coast of the United States. I'm joined by Jamie Gregory, who may be a friendly face to all of you. She's moderated all of the past Talk to Expert Tuesday sessions, and she'll help me keep an eye on the questions coming in and be the person who will keep me on track. So Jamie, do you want to say hi to everyone?
Sure, thank you, Katie. Hi, everyone. Jamie Gregory here. I'm the Community Operations Manager here at Qlik. So I'm, basically in charge of making sure that everything is up and running on the Qlik community, that all the updates that go out, any new features, and then roles and permissions, of course. That's been a big thing, in the past couple months with the new case portal. But if you have any questions or anything like that, just please let us know. We're happy to be here.
Awesome. We couldn't do it without you, Jamie. So now before I introduce our other panelists, I'll go through some housekeeping items. Everyone is currently on mute, and we ask that you type your questions in the Q&A panel below. We will not necessarily be using the panel to answer. We won't respond in text through that because we're hoping to speak to them all live today. You should receive a prompt for a survey at the end of this, so go ahead and take it. It takes less than a minute. It's about 4 questions. You can tell us if you like it, if you don't like it, and most importantly, you can let us know what you want the next topics to be. So we're always taking those requests. So all feedback is appreciated. If you don't have a prompt for the survey, which you should, but if not, you can go ahead and email us at digital@qlik.com. And if you think of something at a later time that you want to send over, we are always open ears. So we're hoping for this session, you've had a chance to try out our newest feature, that is application automation, which is today's topic. We want you to keep all questions relative to the topic if we can. And please don't ask questions on any open cases. We won't be able to help to that directly. But our experts today are the very people who helped release this product. Hopefully you've gotten a chance to play around in it and start working with it so we can use this forum to help you troubleshoot or share some of the best practices. And we're really excited to kind of show you all that it can do. So we have with us today, Jeffrey Goldberg, a senior product manager. We have Nico Nellison, a senior director of automation product management. That's another mouthful of a title, just like ours. We have Pete Mahil-Rappelet. Oh, I'm going to say the last name wrong. I'm sorry. Our senior manager for R&D customer first application automation, and Emil Kozlowski, our solution architect. So we'll kick it off. Jeffrey, can you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Absolutely, Katie. Thank you so much. It's so great to be here today. I am Jeff Goldberg, and I am the product manager for automation and orchestration, among many other things here in the Qlik Cloud platform. And I'm just thrilled and delighted to be sharing the stage with my good friends in Ghent, Emil, Nico, and Pete Mahil, as well as you, Katie, and Jamie. So awesome. Thanks for having us. We already have our first question.
I know we're going to have to get to all of them today. So Nico, you're next. You want to give a quick intro?
Sure. Thanks, Katie. Hi, everyone. Good to be here. Nico, I'm the founder of Blender. And as you know, we joined Qlik 1 year ago through our acquisition, and I'm now part of the product management team.
Yeah, we're super happy to have you on board. It's given a lot to Qlik, so thank you. Pete, Michiel, you want to give a quick introduction?
Yes, hello, hi everybody. So I'm Pete Michiel, heading the customer first team for automations, and mainly we work on connectivity with a close connection to the platform team, the development team, and we focus on all the customer facing and all the customer related activities, and make sure we help with product management doing the right things for you.
Awesome, thank you. And certainly, but not least, Emil, can you give a quick intro?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Emil. I came along with the Blender acquisition as well. And currently, I'm working on making new connectors available in Qlik Application Automation, like, for example, the Qlik Cloud Services connector.
Awesome.
The most important cog in this machine.
So we have some questions pre-submitted from the registration. I'll start with a few of those before we get into the chat, because the first one I think helps lay the groundwork for this whole discussion. Since application automation was recently released, can you share a quick summary of what it provides, just to give some context as we jump into the deeper questions? Who wants to take that?
I'll take the first one.
Perfect, thanks, Nico.
Application automation is an integration platform. It's a no-code or low-code environment that allows you to build workflows, and we call them automations. And those automations, they replace repetitive manual work. That's the core, that's the essence of it. So in the platform, you will find a list of connectors. Those are the applications we support. Obviously, the most important connector is Qlik Cloud Services itself, but we also have connectors to Slack, Microsoft Teams, Salesforce, and other SaaS applications. So that allows you to orchestrate, if you will, the different platforms that for which we provide a connector. And so a very common use case would be, for example, to do a reload of your app. So you could build an automation that reloads one or a couple of your apps. And then based on whether that succeeded or not, you could add a condition, and then maybe you could send a message to Slack or Microsoft Teams to inform people what the status is of that reload.
So it opens up a world of possibilities. Is that right, Nico?
Absolutely, that's the idea. Yeah.
Perfect. And jumping into the next question here, what automation tools are available out of the box across platforms? Qlik Sense client managed on-prem, Qlik Sense enterprise SaaS, etc. Do you have stats on how this can speed up your time to delivery?
So I can take this. I can take this question, Katie. So Qlik Application Automation, which Nico just described, is effectively the most robust automation tool that we have that's part of the integrated platform, right? And that is available on Qlik Sense or on Qlik Cloud as part of an enterprise subscription. So if you're a Qlik Sense enterprise SaaS customer, you get access to automation. And if you subscribe to some of our data integration capabilities like hybrid data delivery, you gain access to automations as well. When you start to look at some of the other platform products like Qlik Sense Client Managed and some of the on-prem tools, you see a lot of open source tools that are out there. So the consulting team at Qlik has produced a marvelous command line interface that they call Qlik CLI for Windows that's been around now for, oh gosh, close to 5 or 6 years. And that product is fantastic because it not only allows you to manage your tenant in terms of like distributing apps and setting up security rules and stuff like that. It also has the ability to work to support multi-node capabilities within the platform. So if you're spinning up multiple nodes in order to support a distributed horizontal scale environment, it does a really great job of doing that. There are also, what people typically think about from a Qlik perspective when it comes to automation, the first thing their mind goes to is the classic kind of Qlik task chain This was a feature from QlikView where inside of QlikView Publisher, you used to basically be able to set a chain of events where on the completion of one reload, maybe one to many additional reloads would happen. That is available in the client managed product as well. And it's one of the core use cases that we've seen since the launch of Qlik Application Automation in SaaS that our customers want to see. And in terms of what it can do to help speed up your time to delivery, there's, especially when it comes to those kinds of workloads where you have apps that feed, analytics apps that feed other analytics apps. In order to be, you save time by setting up these sequence of calls, so that you don't have to press buttons manually, so that you don't have to basically worry every day if these automatic processes that you set up are running and you have to check on them, right? As Nico described, you can send messages to Slack and Teams. You can handle errors as they come through if a reload fails. And then you start to think about the other use cases that you have when it comes to Qlik Application Automation, where you bridge the gap from doing the analytics DevOps to what we call active intelligence, where your apps now are being refreshed. Then you're checking conditions and thresholds and KPIs in those apps using automation that then trigger downstream processes to like Salesforce and ServiceNow and some of the other connectors that we've added to the platform recently.
Great, thank you, Jeff.
Yeah.
I'm gonna switch gears and look into our Q&A submissions, which are again below, and if you hit Q&A, you can ask your questions. It looks like Christoph asked, hi there, is it possible to share a automation use case? I want to make an automation available for other users, an analyzer license, in a dashboard via the button action. Good question.
It is a great question. So I'll take this one too. So it is a roadmap item to identify how we make automations shareable. As many of you probably know from using the platform right now, automations are available in your personal space. You can set them up so that they'll work with the action button. The action button now has the ability for you to pick an automation. But in terms of being able to make an automation shareable so that you can read it or so that you can execute it, that's actually one of the things that we're going to be looking at in Q1 as we implement finer grain access control and different capabilities as it relates to automation. So stay tuned for that one.
Perfect, thanks.
Yeah, maybe I can add a few things to that question from Christoph, because he's writing that he has a very specific use case. He wants to add a button on a dashboard and then link it to an automation, right? And that's, to Jeff's point, that's something you can do today. Maybe, can I quickly share my screen?
Yeah, go ahead. Here, do I stop sharing? Jamie, keep us on track. Do I need to stop? She's our expert.
Yeah.
Okay.
You might have to find it.
Go.
Sometimes it gets lost.
I got it. I got it.
So this is my own test app. So here I can show you what I mean with link. I'm going to make it a bit smaller here. So here I have buttons. And so something we released very recently is the ability to link it directly to an automation. So you add an action and you choose execute automation, and that will give you a drop-down list of all the automations that you have in your own tenant. But you will only see your own automations. They're personal today. So that's what Jeff meant with today you cannot share them directly. So this would be the way if you just want to link a button to your own automation. But there's also a little trick, because each automation can also be made a triggered automation, and then it has a unique. Let me just pick this one here. Oh, sorry, that was not an automation. Come on. Okay, I'll just pick this automation. So if you are inside an automation, you go to the start block, and then you can choose for triggered. And that will give you a unique URL, which includes an execution token, so the credentials to actually run that automation. So this URL, you can actually share it with other people and it will work. So if you give this URL to somebody else, they could put it behind a button on a sheet, and if they click it, it will actually run that automation. It will still run in your own tenant under your own credentials, but that would be a way of allowing other people to run your own automation, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think, Nico, and I may be mistaken, but the way that execute automation works for the action button, when you set up your automation, you set it up as a triggered automation, and it uses this URL to actually perform the triggers. So it should work out of the box, right?
Exactly. Yeah. But if you are in another tenant, people will not see that drop down, of course. The automation will not pop up. So that's where you would have to do a little trick, and you would have to say, you know what, instead of using that drop down, sorry, now I lost my tab. Instead of using that drop down, you just choose the option open website, and then you enter this specific URL. So it's a bit of a workaround, but it would work.
Yeah, for cross tenant, definitely the way that, I think that's the tab right there is the one you want.
Yep, but in general, automations are limited to one tenant. Today, the scope of an automation is a single tenant. So even if you share that URL with other people, it will still run within your own tenant with your credentials against it.
Yep.
Helpful to know. Thank you. So there's another one in our chat by Magnus. How does one monitor how many automations have been run in a month?
Another fantastic question that I will take.
We're getting good ones today. That's great.
Yes,
I like it.
Yes.
Keep them coming.
So we recognize that we need to provide our customers the ability to monitor their automations as well as many other things inside of a tenant. So one of the things that we've started to do, and we've got a couple of different threads on this. One is we've got an API that we're producing that's going to provide you some kind of summary level metrics, but we are looking at producing a dashboard or a Qlik Sense application that we will supply to customers that will help them monitor their usage of automations and allow them to dig into the details of those automations so that you'd be able to see what your monthly usage is, as well as what automations are being run, what endpoints are being contacted in those automations, snippets that are being used, as well as some other information. That's something that we're currently developing right now and hoping that we'll be able to deliver in the new year.
Something to look forward to. Thank you. And Karen wrote, will we get the Qualtrics connector in automations? Any insight?
Anything is possible. I think that if you're interested in a connector that you don't see in Qlik Application Automation, our recommendation is to go to the ideation portal on Qlik Community and go ahead and fill out an idea for that particular connector. We are taking submissions from there and adding them. We've had some other requests for other connectors as well that we're prioritizing against the list of things. But Qualtrics is a good one to think about.
Perfect. And I'm just sharing my screen. If you go to Qlik Community, right on the top ribbon, all the way at the end, almost at the end, is ideation. This is where you can post ideas, and we definitely have Qlik people looking at it every day. If a lot of people like it, it gets more attention. So share with your friends your ideas, and we are always looking to improve our products. All right.
They do have to have a community account. You do have to be registered customer, partner, or luminary to put ideas in, but definitely share it amongst your colleagues and get some traction on it if that's something that you're really passionate about and would like to see. And then people like Nico and Pete Mahil and Jeffrey can go ahead and review that and see what they can do.
Yeah, thank you, Jamie.
Yeah.
All right, so let's see what other questions we have here. When I call, this looks like a troubleshooting one. When I call a trigger start automation using the GET, it opens a new browser tab, and when successfully complete, shows brackets in the blank browser tab. Is there an elegant alternative? Could I put a message there? Just can't identify a block that seems to do this.
Very
And
good
then
question.
they did add, I don't know if this will help with your answers, but they said if I add the GET as an external link in my space, it is a great way to allow others to action a reload.
I think this question goes back to what I just showed, which is that there's basically two ways of running an automation from a button on a sheet. The first one is with the dropdown, and then the automation will basically run in the background. You can also link to that same URL directly, but it's still an API call. And so the square brackets that you see, that's actually an empty JSON response. So what's happening is that you're using that unique triggered URL of the automation. You're using it as if it's an API endpoint. You can actually send it JSON, which is input to the automation, and the automation will also send you a response. And by default, that response is empty, and that's why you see those square brackets. So what you can do is you can use the output block in the automation, and that output will then become part of that JSON response. But it's still an API call, so it's still going to be JSON that you see in the browser. The alternative is to actually not share that triggered URL, but instead share the URL of the detail page of the automation. So the URL that you have in the address bar of your browser. That's an alternative. If that's what you share with other people, they will actually see the detail page of the automation. They will see the run button. They will be able to run it by themselves. And then it's a bit more interactive. In that case, they will see a nice formatted output from the automation, still using that output block.
Great, thank you, Nico. That's very helpful. We have another one here. Interested in nested JSON, JSON, from Qlik Straight Table, Limit Loops, and REST API. So there's not really a question, it's just they're interested in that. Can you guys speak a little bit more on those pieces?
I think this is about the fact that indeed we do have a block which is called Get Straight Table Data. It's a block that allows you to read data from a table on a sheet. And in most cases, it's just relational data, I would say, but I guess that in this case, there's actually JSON in one of the columns. And so theoretically, you should be able to read that JSON, and that you should be able to process that in an automation, because when you use blocks in an automation, blocks have inputs and outputs, and that's always JSON. So JSON is the internal format that we use in automations. So when you retrieve JSON, even if it's from a straight table, you should be able to process it, and you can always drill down in nested JSON and select individual values. So that's an inherent feature of automations, is the fact that you can actually drill down inside JSON and just pick one value, one key value, for example.
Very cool. Great, thank you. All right, looking at our Q&A panel here, Mark has a question. With client-managed deployment patterns in mind, is it possible for automations to be fully variable fed externally? So movement between environments can be externalized as much as possible.
So just to be clear, a couple of things. First of all, a Qlik Application Automation is a cloud platform product. It is only available for Qlik Cloud. It does not connect back to client-managed installations. The Qlik Cloud blocks that we have are tied to the tenant that you're activating them on. So that's just an important piece of information to help folks as they're thinking about how they use automations. With respect to the other part of the question, though, yes, automations can be variable fed. You can set up inside of an automation different. Let me go ahead and just refresh this page and make sure that it's working, and then I'll go ahead and I'll share my screen. If I can share my screen, share my screen, Share my screen. I'm gonna share my screen.
It's going to be our new jingle, Jeff.
Yeah. So here I have basically just a blank automation. And if I'm going to choose triggered, and you'll be able to see some changes as we go through this. You can pass inputs as query string parameters by default into an automation. But the way that we prefer that you do it is there's this input block. And when you use the input block, it gives the ability for you to add labels, and then you can supply multiple arguments or query string parameters that you want to pass into the automation. And then from that, you can go ahead and output those inputs, right? Or use those inputs throughout your automation to do different things. So if we take a look at how the triggered URL updates, you can see now it actually supplies input 1 and input 2. And if we look at the get example, you can see that it's just adding it as a query string parameter. So when information is sent, it captures that information. A live example of that I can show you, if I log in, perfect. And if I go to my catalog and I type hot dog alert, if we look at my automation here, and I'm sharing this, everyone can see my screen, right? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
You can see that I have, if we go over to this input block here, you can see I have app ID and bookmark ID as two of the parameters that I send in. So what happens is when this automation runs, these inputs, it looks for these inputs. And in this particular case, app ID is required. So if app ID isn't passed into the automation with this query string parameter, the automation is going to fail. It's going to error out, basically saying that the parameter wasn't supplied, and so it errors out. That's one of the really nice things about being able to set up these flows, because you can go ahead and use this data that you're passing in. You can pass it in from apps. In this particular example, this is going back to that action button that Nico was talking about earlier. You can actually send a bookmark in by checking the box that says include selections. What that will do is it will create a bookmark on the fly, send that bookmark ID into the automation, and then the automation goes and lists the bookmark, finds the bookmark, and applies that bookmark so that you can go ahead and do whatever additional processing against the app as part of the automation that you want to use.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yep.
I'll share the link to the community article
Yep.
with all the details on how to use that button.
And Katie, there was another question here that I just want to jump to, just because I'm sharing my screen. I want to show people it. So Quetzal asks, can you export an automation? At the moment, you can only see a duplicate option, right? So something really cool about application automation is you can right-click and choose download workspace, and this will give you the ability to just download your automation. And now I can go into a new automation as an example. And I can right-click and upload a workspace. And I can pick that JSON, and just like that, it will import the flow. And if you want to learn more about this, as well as different connectors, a new page just launched yesterday. Thanks, big shout out to Pete Michiel on this for getting this done on Qlik Community with the help of the community team. But we've just released kind of a landing page. It's not kind of, it is a landing page for automation connectors. And you can see all these different connectors here that we have. And so if you do something like click on the Qlik Cloud connector, this will bring up a page that has a number of different articles and how-tos on using the Qlik Cloud Connector. And if you scroll to the bottom of this particular one, which is also made by Emil, about task chaining, it walks you through how to build your own task chain, but at the very bottom, your reward for reading the entire article is there's actually 2 JSON files at the bottom. So you can download these and then you can import them into your workspace. So I'll just grab this one here and I'll go back to my workspace here. I'll upload workspace. I'll pick that basic task chain and poof, just like that. Magic. Now it will overwrite whatever is in your current workspace. So keep that in mind. It's not additive, it's replace, but you do have the capability to do that here.
Some of this certainly feels like magic. It's pretty cool. I'm going to jump to Divya's question in the Q&A. It's going to be a little clunky to say out loud. It's a lot easier to read. It says, hi, Qlik team. Do FTP/SFTP connectors in Qlik Automation support reading, moving a text file from a zip folder in the FTP/SFTP server?
So the answer, unfortunately, is no. We do not support zip files. So you could use automations to move that file as a blob from A to B, but you would not be able to unzip it or read its actual content. So zip files is currently not something we support.
Thanks, Nico. All right. And Magnus asks, I believe you have mentioned the possibility of having templates for automations. Can you expand on what your plans are for templates, if there are any? Being able to download and upload automations is a really good thing, but curious about other ways to make it even easier for people to get started.
Emil, do you want to show it?
Yeah.
Can I give the demo?
Do it.
Please do. Please do.
Oh.
Tip your hat. Tip your hat. Coming real soon to a Qlik Cloud near you. Yes. Right around the corner.
So yeah, we are working on a new feature, and this is, instead of adding a blank automation, that you have some examples to start from. And these are not fully working examples. These are starting points that you will have to configure. You will have to connect your data sets. You will have to do some mapping. You have to drag and drop some things to make it your own automation. But I think, like the question is saying, a very good starting point for everybody who is new.
Definitely an accelerator, that's for sure. Go ahead, Emil.
If you want to add a new automation, you need to go to add new automation, but now you're prompted with the template picker. And here you have a marketplace-like thing from which you can pick your automations. They are grouped by connectors or by use case. And you can click on automation for more details. It's linked to a community article. You get some screenshots, and then by clicking use templates, you can actually install the template. And here you go with a lot of comments. It's a bit pre-configured, except for your tenant specific stuff. You still have to configure that, but it will make it a lot easier to start with these basic use cases. So this is a task chain. It will reload multiple apps in parallel, wait for them to finish, and then if they're all succeeded, it will output something. But yeah, very easily, you could just swap this out. It's, for example, sending a message to a channel in Slack. And just like this, you've modified the template very easy out of the box. So.
And maybe if you click Emil on the wait for reloads to complete, there you can see the nice thing that some mappings are already configured to link the blocks to each other. I think that's a great power of automation in full, but also here in the templates.
Awesome. You heard it
That's
here
beautiful.
first, everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there an ETA on when it will be out?
Absolutely. Real soon.
Real soon.
Spoken like a true product manager.
Yeah, so this is something that we're currently testing internally. The team is working on validating the different templates we're going to launch with, yeah, this is something that's coming out real soon that we're very excited about. The the other piece of this, because I saw this question also asked, is on the roadmap for templates in the template picker is your ability to actually share templates through the picker. So you'll be able to upload templates through that interface to share with other people inside of your tenant, and then eventually, as was alluded to by Emil, a marketplace and a way for you to actually share these automations with other Qlik users, other Qlik customers through a marketplace for add-ons that will then go ahead and add that to the template picker as you procure them. So a lot of stuff involved in that reusability roadmap. It's an exciting topic.
Yeah, there is another question on roadmaps while we're on the topic. It says, is QAA on any client managed roadmaps? You know, we talked about client managed before.
Yep. So it is not. It is a cloud product. Qlik Application Automation is cloud native out of the box, and we really believe that it's something as you're looking at as companies and customers are looking at migrating their workloads from on-premises to cloud. We definitely see potentially some opportunities in automation supporting that move, but definitely it's a feature that we're going to continue investing in on the cloud platform.
Awesome, thank you. And switching gears here, Stefano wrote, on enterprise version of Qlik Sense, Qlik Automation has a license ad hoc. Can I use it in button on Qlik Sense app on enterprise platform? What are the differences between Qlik Automation SaaS and then client managed, which I guess is along the client managed lines?
Yeah. So I totally appreciate folks' questions about client managed. So again, Qlik Application Automation is a cloud product. It's available as part of the Qlik Cloud platform. And in terms of how it's licensed, it is available for Qlik Cloud Enterprise subscription. So it's not available on Qlik Sense Business. But in that enterprise subscription, there's what we call a free tier. So every tenant gets 5,000 runs. That's 5,000. So you can create as many automations as you want, and up to 5,000 total runs per month is available free of charge as part of your enterprise SaaS subscription. Then if you use more than 5,000 in a month, there's different tiers that you graduate to based on what your usage is and how you're using the automation product. So that's how the license works.
Okay, thank you. We have another one from Divya. Can we create custom API connectors in Qlik Automation so that we can access the APIs that are not available at this time? Thanks.
I can maybe answer that one. So, and let me also share the screen, if I may. Try. Okay, let me know if you can see the screen.
We can.
Yeah, so in the editor, there is an option to call an external API. And with the call URL block, I think this is a very, very useful one because, of course, we can't add all the connectors in the world. There are quite a lot of SaaS applications over there, so we try to focus. But with the call URL block, you can call any external API you want. Of course, you need to configure your authentication and your methods, but there are quite a lot of options here already. You can add parameters, you can add headers, you can specify the encoding. Under settings, you can also choose to get a full response or capitalize the header sometimes that's necessary. So this is quite broad. We also have, if necessary, and sometimes that is necessary, a custom code block where you can configure some things to use in the call URL block. So with these two, you should be able to call almost every API out there that is public. And that being said, for the existing connectors, sometimes you also might miss some blocks. let's say in the Qlik Cloud connector, we didn't implement all the available API endpoints. Same for Salesforce and so on. We tried to focus on the most important ones, but we worked a lot on including some raw API blocks. So also if inside a connector you miss some blocks to use, you can always use this raw block where you can specify the paths or the URL. You can add your body or your parameters in there to do that call, to do that API call. So with these tools, you should be able to reach to most public APIs. And that's maybe more product management related, but we are also looking into having your own SDK, your own option to build your own connector and then share it across automations.
Thank you. While we're on the topic of API, there is another question that was pre-submitted, and it says, it's a bit of a lengthy one, so bear with me. I have built a blend which downloads data via an API, and I'm trying to export the data into an existing file on Google Drive. I've managed to create a new file and write the data using 1, create file on Google Drive, and 2, write line to file on Google Drive, but I have not been able to find a way to update an existing file. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. By the way, a blend, that's the old name of an automation. The company used to be called Blender, so that's why.
Yeah, apologies.
We still call them
lingo.
blends. So internally we talk about blends all the time, but they're now officially automations. So that's actually that's true. You cannot change an existing file on S3, for example. Each file is cannot be changed once you wrote to it. So it's a one-time thing. If you want to add data, you actually have to start by adding creating a new file. I'm not 100% sure on Google Drive, but I'm pretty sure it's a limitation of Google Drive itself. Again, not 100% sure on S3. It's actually the behavior of the platform itself that you cannot append to an existing file. On Google Drive, I will have to double check. But it's not uncommon for cloud storage to only be able to create new files and not append to existing ones.
Okay, great. Now's about the time. We're at the 15-minute left mark, where I'll just remind anyone, if they want to get their questions answered, to go ahead and put it in the Q&A panel below. We still have some questions from registration, so I'll go through those and let anyone get in their last minute questions. So I'll kind of jump to some of the bottom ones, because these are more general questions. It's any recommendations for speeding up runtime for an automation? Any best practices?
We can talk about that. So maybe it's a good time to talk a little bit about the behavior of an automation. An automation will start at the start block when it runs, and then it will go through the blocks one by one. So it will not do stuff in parallel. And that's for a good reason, because typically what you want to do is you want to do something, then you get a response, and then you want to use that in subsequent blocks. So all the blocks will be executed one by one. You can also have a loop where, for example, you're looping over data. Maybe you're fetching leads from Salesforce and you want to loop over them one by one. That's going to take time. Now, the execution of automations is very fast. I mean, it's underlying, it's a Kubernetes pod, and it's actually running native code. So it's super fast. If it takes time, it's basically because we are communicating with the APIs of those platforms, and they have a certain slowliness to them. So to answer your question, you can never speed up a single automation. If you are processing a long list of data, what you could do is work in batch. We have a couple of blocks to work with batches of data. It's a bit more complex to build, but let's say you have to loop over 1 million records in Salesforce. Well, that would be something you could speed up by using a batch loop block, but it's a bit more complicated to build. But in general, automations have a certain speed, and that depends on the external APIs that we call.
And the solution you just shared might also kind of apply to the next question, but feel free to elaborate more. They're asking if automations can run simultaneously.
Yeah, also a great question. So you can, if you have multiple automations in your tenant, they can all run at the same time. Now, there is a concurrency limit. By default, in the free tier, it's 5, which means you have 5 slots. And if you have 5 running automations, then number 6 will have to wait. It will go into a queue. It will say waiting to start, and it will only start running when one of the other 5 has finished. So you can run 5 automations at the same time in the free tier. That said, one single automation can never run twice. So if you have created only one automation, you can never execute it 2 times at the same time, and that's on purpose, because we want to avoid so-called racing conditions where it gets really confusing because something is running 2 times. So on purpose, we made sure that one individual automation can never run in parallel with itself.
Great, thank you. And then someone is sharing, they saw on a video that we can launch an automation with a button in a Qlik Sense application. Can you share how to do so? So I don't know if you guys know the video they're talking about, but apparently it's out there.
I know some folks have shown I know some folks on LinkedIn have created ones that do the open website URL.
Okay.
But I think Nico also already showed that earlier in the Q&A, where you can go in and using the action button, there's basically the 2 different ways that you can do it, right? There's the open the website URL, which is going to pop open another window, and if you're using the triggered automation, it'll pop up the window and it will supply whatever output you set as an output block. And if you don't have that output block, it's just going to return square brackets, right, as an empty array. If you're using the execute automation action, then that execute automation action, and actually, why don't I just go ahead and share my screen? Okay, so if let's go here, and let's go here, and let's, I think it's this app. Yep. All right. So I have this marvelous button right here, and I have added this execute automation, and you can see that it's going to run hot dog alert, which we've already looked at earlier. Now, what I'm going to do is I'll just go ahead and I'll make a selection here. And you can see I've got my basket items right here. And now if I click this button, what it's going to do is it's going to run, not there, but here. Let's go back to hot dog alert. Hot dog alert. And I'm just going to drag this off here. And what you want to do is you want to add an input box, right? In that input box, you want to provide different labels. So in this case, I'm providing app ID as my first label. It can actually be anything. If you do choose to use app ID, though, it cannot be app ID all one word. If you do that, then it's going to fail the automation, and you're not going to know why. It's a reserved word. And then for my second input, I'm going to choose bookmark ID, like so. Now, if I have it both set that these are required, but I'm just going to turn that off, and I'm going to save this. And now when I run hot dog alert, it's just going to run this input and then the output. And so I'll just drag an output, and now it will do that output. So I'll save it. And you can see I've got my URL here, but I don't need that, because if I go back to my button, as I mentioned earlier, I am already picking hot dog alert here. So I'll choose run ended. I'll click button, and you can see that it grayed out and then it came back. And if we come back to hot dog alert here and we go to the overview, we should see that the last run was just now, and it finished in less than 1 second. And you can see it returned the app ID, and then it also returned this bookmark ID that we can then apply that bookmark inside of the automation and go ahead and loop through those selections or get table data and start to do other types of automations. So that's certainly one way. And then again, if we go to the editor and we grab just this URL, I won't grab the other pieces, but if I grab this URL and I go back to the app, and instead of an automation, I add a navigation, which is open a website or email, and paste this. Now, if I click Done Editing and click on the button, you can see it goes ahead and it kicks off, and you can see that it came back with an empty array. Magic.
Yes.
Magic.
So and now it's an empty array because it didn't have any inputs, right? Because
Correct.
you're not using that built-in feature that will automatically create a bookmark. So instead, you just linked to the URL, which means that it didn't receive any inputs. Yep.
But what I could do, right, is I could just do this as an example. Save it, go to output, and type in hello world. Save it, come back here, click this button again, and now you can see it returns hello world because that's the output.
Yeah, and if you want to get rid of the brackets, that's also a setting. If you want to go back to the output.
Sure. Yes.
And then go to the settings of that block.
Uh-huh.
Yep, and then only this output.
Aha.
So by default, it's giving you a list of outputs because you could have multiple output blocks in your automation. That's why it has those square brackets, which means it's a list. But now it will only give you the single output that you set.
That's super cool.
Oh, yeah.
You learn something every day, Jeff.
I do. I do learn something every day.
And I've learned a lot today alongside all of you guys. I'm going to call the last question from Christoph here. He asked, is the possibility to share Qlik objects, for example, a bar chart, via Slack or Teams on the roadmap?
Yes. So what we are working collaboratively right now with the reporting services team to add some capabilities around their reporting services API, which includes basically being able to get chart images or sheet images and then send those to Slack. We had some of that in our early access program, but we found some security issues as well as the reporting service API is in the process of being becoming guidelines compliant, so it can be released publicly. And when those two things happen, we'll update automations to support that ability to send images to Slack and Teams. So stay tuned for that.
Great. And thank you all for being here today. It was a great discussion, a lot of awesome questions from everyone in the Q&A panel. We really enjoyed your participation. I will share, I'm sharing my screen that has our QR code for our next session, so a little shameless plug. We do these monthly. They're pretty great monthly. Our next one is on refining reports and visualizations, so we can help get you all ready for your year-end reporting season. Feel free to use that QR code and register today. We'll have awesome experts joining us again, just like we had with Jeff, Nico, Emil, and Pete Mahil. Thank you all so much for joining and sharing your knowledge, expertise. It's been great. So
thanks, Katie.
Thank you, Katie.
Thanks, Jamie. This was fun.
Thank you, everyone.
And thanks everyone else.
Thank
Wes,
you, everyone,
thanks a
for
lot.
joining.
Yeah, thanks
See
for
you
the
on the
great
next
questions,
session.
folks. Take care. Bye-bye.
See you guys soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.